Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark, DJ Solitaire here with episode 152 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I share in each episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. So we are currently in the 98 to 99 season, so the latter half of 98 through to the summer of 99-ish. Because, I'm going to be just going back and forth occasionally or just sort of moving through the progressions. But, there's some projects I haven't covered yet. And in some cases, I don't remember as much when I got some of these tracks. So quite often, some of these productions got to me a little bit later. I know it will be surprising to regular viewers that there are things that I don't remember, but it's true. So the name Organic Noise, I first remember coming across at some point, maybe in 97, but definitely in 98. So this project was a collaboration between one half of Extreme, Jan Müller, with Planet Ben Wirzog. Now, we've already featured a track of Fools and Tools, which was the other half of Extreme, Marcus, um, with Ben. They only made two tracks. There were a lot more Organic Noise that came out. So there was a single in 97 that I have zero recollection of having heard at the time. And it could very well be that because I was really on my alien, cyber, melodic, electro intense kind of mission with the music, that was what I was after. This a little bit more pulled back, restrained stuff wasn't really what I was going for. Uh, but I mean, that changed. I started really opening my ears to different flavors. And a lot of these flavors I'd been exposed to in different ways at different parts of the journey, through longer DJ sets or events where, there was this sound that was featured. And, some of this stuff takes time to sort of get used to, I think. But I remember in 98, I got this compilation. Now, this one, so first of all, there was I never got the Tip Singles one, um, which had one of the Organic Noise tracks on it. Then there's this one, which I got, I think, at some point in 97, but definitely, it might have been 98. Because remember Magic is on here, and I think I got this one in 98. There's the Japanese sticker on there, so I definitely got it there. And then released in 97, but only came into my clutches at some point in 98, is this Japanese edition of a Tip compilation, the Tip Clear compilation, Mu, which is a Japanese word for clear. What's not very clear is being able to read the contents. So, the titles of the artists, the titles of the track and the project name are in exactly the same color as the plastic case. I can't read it. You can read who did what and so on and so forth. But this one has an Organic Noise track on it. And that's the one I'm going to feature today, Labyrinth of Colours, which was one of the two tracks that was on their first single on Tip Records, apparently in 1997. I have no recollection of having heard it then. I would expect that I would have, but who knows? Now, their album only came out apparently in 2000, which is a bit of a shocker. And it looks a lot less colorful than a Labyrinth of Colours. But that track's on there. Shorter version of Acid Soul somehow. I haven't looked at that, but 6 minutes versus the 9 minutes of the vinyl version. But Labyrinth of Colours as a title sure means a lot to me because this is what the parties were like. First of all, it was like this psychedelic labyrinth that you're going through in your consciousness and that whole state that you're in, and especially as the music is taking you on this journey and you're trying to find your way to the other end, right? And at the end of the party, ideally, if it takes you in the right way, it's yippee yahoo, you've gotten to the end. But the colors thing was really starting to fade out over the years. This is one of the things that really attracted me, this Genki batik that I saw at the first event that I went to in 1994 and the really colorful clothing. Some of I still have some of those ones from 94, 95, and so on. And they're still really colorful. It really is, the stuff is nuclear resistant. But I love the theme and the title, Labyrinth of Colors. The track has its more minimal and mantra-like style. And as if we've talked about, I haven't featured any solo music of Planet Ben yet because I actually didn't come across it back then. But I'll get there. But, as we started seeing with Extreme, they had some really colorful and melodic and, really full-bodied, beautiful lyrical stuff. And they also had this more abstract, stripped down kind of mantra-like stuff, very German, style, one of the many German styles. And it's all great, right? And all for different parts of the journey. I started seeing more of this start to take over by the time we're getting into 98, 99. And, this darker side getting a little bit seductive. And then it's like, okay, and where's the light to balance it? And as people were starting to move into more wearing a lot of black at events. There was one event that fortunately I wasn't well and wasn't able to attend, but I know that Solstice did an event at some point, it was late in 98, where all the decor was black and white, right? So no color, right? And Tip had their, I think this one was called Beyond Color. So it was starting to move though into Beyond Color having no color. And this was starting to rub me the wrong way a little bit. And I don't want to aim this at organic noise, right? I love organic noise, but I'm just speaking about the overall tendency. But this kind of sound is an essential part of the journey and how you find color in these patterns and in this repetition and in the storyline. Right. And then also how breaking things down and putting them in certain forms really brings up something in your experience of the music and in your consciousness, right? In this kind of labyrinth of our minds. So I think this is an absolutely incredible track, and you're going to find out for yourself because I'm going to play it now. So let's have a listen to Labyrinth of Colors by Organic Noise. Right, so it starts off already with some cool sounds and then beautiful note. Love that textured sound that came out of it. Another unexpected tone coming out of it, right? It's not quite as related to the lower first note. Now, I wish actually there were a little bit more. There were times in DJ sets where you would hear actually all of this. Where everybody wasn't obsessed with doing the nonstop mixing and you just have this moment to pause, 3 in the morning, you're under the stars and you're hearing, these sounds coming from outer space. I mean, everything sounds, takes on, especially on a big system in that set and setting, really takes on a whole other dimension. And everything sounds like voices. Notice the rhythm of that. So you see here, there's just a little bit of this texture, and then that riff is going to become more pronounced, and it's going to become a major part of this whole track. And, the circularity of this harmonic loop here is amazing. And then that pause. Beautiful, soft, but still heart chakra kind of kick. Again, that repetition, right? So you start hearing it becomes, really mathematical, the way you start hearing these patterns in a certain cycle. Wonderful hi-hat. Just doesn't sound like an ordinary hi-hat. sounds like a voice. Now the emphasis is different with this particular riff. Just listen to the variety of sounds, right? Where they are again in frequency, where they are in the mix in terms of the balancing, and the original sounds as well. Great drum roll. Right, so these are all what historically would be part of a tune without the melodic stuff having come in yet. And this again can be extremely powerful in terms of driving a certain part of the story. Love that. That climbing stuff is amazing. The way some of that stuff stays on the upper frequency, listen to that. You should really get some proper headphones in for this. This is unbelievable. Oh, there's some other very well balanced stuff that's going up and down on a lower frequency along with all of that. Again, another cycle change here. You have that mantra, right? That stuff that just continues all the way through. So you have, you know, the unchanging with the changing, which is kind of like, you know, what our life experience can be like. Notice again the rhythm and the growl to it. I love the way that whoosh opens up that upper frequency and then you get something that's up there. It sort of sustains that level. So this kind of anthem-like voice there. Again, kind of like one of those, you know, good old school extreme clarion calls. And a sort of anguished cry. Again, that climb. Now notice how much louder it is now, right? So it's that building up. And you know, when you are dancing, if you're in the right state and the DJ's doing their thing, you know, all of this is really taking you somewhere as each pattern starts to connect to different thoughts and emotions and your whole process, and you can just enjoy following that journey. That's pretty revolutionary. Ooh, a little surprising little riff in that mid to low frequency there. There it is again. You really hear a whole lot more when you plug yourself in. And now it's more stripped down, right? So getting back to basics. Very subtle stuff happening here. Engineering is just impeccable. Hear that stuff climbing up again. So powerful. sirens just sounding like a sort of cosmic distress signal or sending out to outer space to try to get some attention and get some help. Very interesting shaping here with two shorter punctuations and then that horn. Whoa, that was a whole lot of fabulous. That one just went really like out of the frame, sort of like my hand there, and then comes back in. Wow. We get this sort of sonic ocean of tranquility. That did not feel like 9 minutes. I don't know what your experience was, but that absolutely like I was like, oh, are we partway through the track and we're gonna have like this, long extended break? I mean, that's when you know the music is doing its thing because the journey is you're so in the journey that you can like, what did we get here already? Which is why it's really important to be in the moment, which is kind of part of what our scene is about, to be honest. And wow. I mean, really colorful, and it's a paradigm shift, right? It's just it's this is a whole other kind of music, and an important part of the journey, as I've said, I don't know how many times. Again, it's kind of like these riffs repeating. I just keep going around in circles until I turn this thing off. So absolutely fantastic stuff. Genius work by Jan and Ben. Fortunately, they did quite a lot of organic noise stuff, right? There's that whole album that's somewhere out of reach right now. Unfortunately, Fools and Tools was not as long-lived a project. I'm going to go back and do the other track that I didn't feature because it's great stuff. But anyway, I'm glad to have finally featured these guys. Absolutely incredible project, phenomenal track. There will be more. Some of them have, like a 2 minute intro and 2 minute outro, which is a little bit more difficult for the purposes of, this episode and so on. But again, I wish that more DJs would do that. And also that the parties were, in a sense, that kind of space where there isn't the invitation to go somewhere else. You don't go off to the food court just because, oh, the music stops for a little bit, or you don't go talk to your friend or get on your phone or do something like that. We used to be in the middle of the forest, away from anything, and you were just in your trip and you're there for the journey. And so the music does something and it's like, okay, I'm just going to go along with it. And I think that's really important because that will help you to meet stuff and experience, the sound through space and through your inner space as well in a really different way. So on that note, I will sign off here and let you hear the whole track without commentary. I am Mark, DJ Solitaire, wrapping up episode 152 of Retro Goa Explorations and leaving you now with Organic Noises, Labyrinth of Colours.